Hey, it's Brad from Unwired View. I'm here to talk to you today about a new Sprint phone. It's called the Sanyo Zio. At least that's what I think it's called. Could be Zio, could be Zio. I'm going with Zio. I think that's a cool name. The Sanyo Zio is an Android handset. It's $99 on Sprint with contract. Now, the thing about this one is it's not going to be the fanciest phone on the planet. I mean, it looks really nice. Do my Vanna White, very nice, right? But it's not necessarily the nicest specs on the planet. We're not looking at all the crazy specs on an Evo 4G or an Epic 4G. Heck, it doesn't even have 4G. So, how does it hold up with some of these other Android phones on the market today? Especially the other mid-range ones that have roughly the same kinds of specs. The nice thing is that with Android, it's pretty easy to keep these phones pretty inexpensive. Yeah, they're not going to, like I said, have the coolest features, but at least they're great little smartphones. They'll do the trick in terms of emailing, internet, all of your applications that you'll need through the Android market. It's going to have all of those same kinds of functionality. So, let's check out the Sanyo Zio in particular and see how it holds up. So let's go over a rough overview of the Sanyo Zio. Basically, the Zio here, nice little Android mid-range phone, like I was saying before. Right now, it's running Android 2.1. Technically, it's a stock version of it. You don't see a whole lot of extra stuff to it, except you see the Sprint ID edition there. We covered that in a previous review, but we'll go over that a little bit in just a moment here. And as you can tell, you just got your call button and then your app tray. Pulling that up here. So you see some of all the usuals. As you can tell here, the screen's a little bit laggy. So moving up and down, not necessarily the smoothest or quickest getting up and down on there. So now, the interesting thing about this is it's a 600 megahertz processor, which of course is going to cause a little bit of lagging issues. But I have seen other 600 megahertz processors that do end up being a little bit more smooth. Now it could just be that those ones that I've tested out before just have a different user interface that makes it less laggy. Your guess is as good as mine there. I'm not exactly sure. So, alright, let's go back in here. Now let's give you an overview of all the different things that you see on here. Okay. So, it's a 3.5 inch touchscreen, capacitive touch. Now the screen itself is actually about the same size as you would see on an iPhone, if that's a helpful comparison. Although, one thing I did find quite interesting is that the keyboard on here, let's see if I can go in here, the keyboard on here, it seems okay from here, but honestly as I try to type on it, I had some issues. So, more often than not, I just ended up having to go to landscape mode and getting the larger keys. And frankly for me, I don't really like having to do that unless I absolutely have to. Just kind of annoying because frankly I'm more of a one-handed typer. Yeah, I know that was a good demonstration of me one-handed typing. What can I say? So, now as far as the physical buttons on here, well, we've got some physical and touch-sensitive buttons. We've got the standards, the home menu, going back in the search. So this is pretty much standard on every Android device. Very seldom will you see any phone going away from this particular pattern. But then they like to add in some stuff on top of that though. In this case, the Zio has physical buttons down here. We've got the typical call and end buttons. This doubles as a power button. So anytime I hit that, it does a screen lock. If I hold it down long enough, then obviously it will just turn off. The other interesting thing I found was the trackball. It's like, this is very 2007, 2008, I guess. I just find it interesting. Now it's nice because, yeah, I can scroll through like this. But it's not too often nowadays that you see a phone with a trackball. And I'm guessing that the reason why you don't see that very often is because they've learned their lesson. Especially with BlackBerry. If you take a look at the BlackBerries of the past who had the trackball, it was a great idea and concept, but they always kept getting dirty, and too many BlackBerry users just had issues with them and having to replace them. And so finally BlackBerry just chose to go with the trackpad model, and a lot of other companies followed suit. So seeing the trackball in here is kind of, well, retro for lack of a better term. That trackball is so retro. Like, that's just weird for me to even say that, but that's how it is with tech, I guess. Alright, so we're looking at the side here. We've got the 3.5 millimeter jack, we've got volume, and here in this little mysterious tab, we've got the micro USB charger. So you'll be able to see a detailed picture underneath the tabs on my review on unwiredview.com. Over here on the right hand side, we've got the camera and the micro SD card slot. So it's nice to have all that accessible from the outside. Sometimes it just gets annoying having to go underneath the battery cover to get into the micro SD and the whatever else that they choose to put underneath there. On the back, we've got a 3 megapixel camera and a sizable speaker. On a lot of phones, you don't typically see a speaker that size, so it's great to see that. Because when you see a speaker that size, you know it's going to be loud enough for you to actually hear. That's a great indicator. So, Qualcomm, okay. And then other than that, that's a little overview of the Sanyo Zio in and of itself. Now, one thing I did not cover that I really would like to, this is actually one of the strong suits of the phone. I really like the smooth edges, and hopefully you can tell just by looking at it from here how smooth those edges are. It just kind of drapes over to the side, so that way you're not getting these abrupt edges on the screen. It makes for really nice sliding, so I can just take my finger, just go, whoop. And that was a smooth little outtake there. Just go like so. Nice and smooth. So in fact, it seems to actually scroll better when you're doing it that way, instead of just trying to do it from the middle of the screen. See, I kind of had some issues there. So if I get a good firm hold on it, no, that's the right edge. If I get a good firm hold on it and then just slide it from the edge to the other edge, it seems to work out okay. Okay, so we're going to go into the web browser here. I figured this is a good opportunity to check out unwiredview.com. So we're going to go in there, and this is great. So we're just going to go in and, oh, wait a second. It doesn't actually multi-touch. How interesting. So we can do the double tap, which is just fine. A little bit of lagginess in there, but I actually have to use these either double tap or use these zoom in and out keys on the side. So now this is Android 2.1. Most 2.1 devices are going to have multi-touch, but this one was apparently the multi-touch was just one of those features that had to be left out in order to help keep the cost down. Thing is, I know a lot of phones that are less expensive, that are Android, that still have the multi-touch. So this is kind of puzzling to me. So it's not necessarily the end of the world, but certainly for me, I gotta have pinch to zoom. I gotta have my multi-touch, whether it be for the browser or whether it be for just the maps in general. So this is kind of a deal maker or breaker to me. Well, there you have it, folks. The Sanyo Zio with Sprint, $99 with the contract. Overall, my opinion is it's an okay phone. It's not necessarily anything groundbreaking. Doesn't have the greatest specs. For $99, I feel there are quite a few other Android phones on the market that would do the job just as well, if not a little bit better. If few goods and bads. It's really lightweight, which is great when I put it in my pocket. It's definitely not going to weigh down in my pocket, but at the same time it's almost so lightweight that it kind of feels cheap, like as if it's just a really cheap plastic. No multi-touch on it, so you don't have to pinch to zoom like you do on most other Android phones of this caliber. 600 megahertz processor is okay, it just causes a little bit more lagging when it comes to pretty much any everyday process on the phone itself. So just expect a little bit of lagginess. It's not terrible, but it is noticeable. For other details on the Sanyo Zio, I definitely want you to check out my review at unwiredview.com. I look forward to seeing you there. Thanks a lot.